Hello guys, Dan here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be all about Woflgang Amadeus Wolff. So this is a pre-order exclusive model from the Operation Crimson Stone. I think it's going to be released solo in the next few months in the different pose, but I assume this tutorial will be applicable for both of them. So this is going to be a quick and very easy paint job. So without further ado, sit back, relax and enjoy the rest of the video. I primed the model with two very thin coats of the black primer. You can use this from the spray can or from the airbrush, or just apply it with the brush, whatever it's easier for you. Just pick up some black primer color. I will start with painting his coat first and metal armor plates that he have on his boots. For this I will apply my base color as burnt red, so this will help me a lot to get a really nice tone on the red on top of it, because we are painting over black. So if I start with some bright red first, it's going to be really desaturated and really dark. So this first step is needed for the second layer to be a really nice tone. After this first layer is completely dried, I just went with my Evil Sunz Scarlet and I just applied as a second layer, totally covering the first layer, and you will notice that this color will now cover everything so easy. So only one pass will be enough for you to have a really satisfying tone of color. Now I moved on and I applied the dark Prussian blue on the few of the blue armor panels that I want on his shoulder, just to be able to see how it will contrast the red, and should I go a little brighter or not. And also this blue will be my base for the next blue that I'm going to apply on top of it, so this color is actually very good in covering the black. Next, I'm going to work on his coat. For this, I'm going to use one of my old brushes which have a really damaged tip, and I'm going to use a Rhinox Hide, and I'm going to start applying a stippling technique on his coat, because I want to simulate like a battered and worn leather. For this, you want your paint to be a little thicker, so don't put it on a wet palette. You can use it straight from the bottle. Just put it somewhere on the side and just pick up little with your brush, not too much, and then start slowly like touching the surface with the tip of your brush, so it will leave very uneven strokes and little texture. So that's what you actually want to do. So just go around and then start applying this on the whole area of the coat. If you still have some areas that are black under it, just leave them like that. It will make even better effect. Now I will move on and start highlighting the coat. For this I'm going to use a flat earth, and same as before, I'm not going to put it on a wet palette or anything like that, so I'm going to use it as thicker as it comes from the bottle. And now I'm going to continue applying a stippling technique, but this time I'm going to be more focused on the raised areas and the areas where my light will drop. So just go around same as before, and if you still see your previous color under it, that's perfectly fine. You just want it like that. Just be focused more on the edges and on the areas that are mostly exposed to the light. Now for the second layer of the highlights, I'm going to add dark sand into the previous color. I will mix it like 50-50. And now I'm going to stipple less area than I stippled in the previous step. But this time I'm going to be focused only like on the edges, on the most raised area of the folds, and I will do a little scratches on the edges. And to finalize the whole look of this letter, I'm going to use a color called Smoke, and I'm going to make a wash out of it. So I will add 3 or 4 dots of the water with only one drop of this paint, and I'm going to create wash, and I'm going to cover the whole ladder areas with this. The areas that are in shadows I will apply 2 or 3 times, while all the rest area only once. And since the messy part is now done, I can go back and finalize the look of the red part of the cloak. For this, I'm going to use Druchii Violet, which is a shade color from Games Workshop, and I'm just going to apply one thorough wash on the all red areas. I will give it now a good amount of time, like half an hour, 35 minutes, for all the washes on the model to dry properly. And I'll go back now with the Evil Sun Scarlet, and I'm just going to try to return the state of this cloak to the previous layer of the paint, because the wash made it too dark. Only tip here is don't go inside the recesses. Everything inside of the deep recesses that the wash made dark, just leave them. That is going to be our shadows. And now we are going to focus on the highlights. For the first highlight, I'm going to mix sunny skin tone like 50-50 in the previous color, and I'm going to start getting focused on the raised areas of the folds. So I'm going to trace all these raised areas, and I'm going to paint them with this mix. I will also be focused on the edges of the flat armor panels using the same color. And for the final highlight, I'm going to add a little of the ivory to the previous mix of the previous 2 colors, and this is going to be used only as the little highlight on the top of the folds. So try to go on every single fold that you can see and draw a little line on top of it, which is going to be a much smaller line than you did in the previous step, and this will create the final look of these red areas. Now I'm going to go back to that blue parts, and I'm going to use a flat blue and just apply it over the dark Prussian blue that I applied before to see is this brighter blue going to match the cloak that I already did and the red parts, or do I need to do something brighter. Just to be honest, I was really happy how this turned on, so I'm going to keep this flat blue like this. Now I'm going to paint the rest of the skin on this model. For this I'm going to use a Bugmans Glow as my base color. So I'm going around the model, and this is going to be applied in 3 very thin coats until I have a really good coverage and until I was satisfied with the tone. So I painted every part of the skin that I could see on this model with this color. For the beard and this little fur that he have on his hands, I used the Rhinox Hide, and I just repainted them back to the brown. Then I used the contrast paint called Guilliman Flesh, and I used it actually as my wash, and I covered the whole area of the skin with this, with the one thick coat. I used this paint straight from the bottle, so no need to dilute or add anything to it. Just shake it pretty well before using it. While that wash was drying, I just wanted to save some time, so I'm going to paint the armor panels that are going to be white. For this I'm going to use a deck 10 and just paint them in the 3 very thin coats until I had a good and intensive off-white on those shoulder plates. Then I pick up a Nuln Oil and I apply the thorough wash on everything that I painted with deck 10 and the previous areas that I painted with blue. So now that all areas of these models are washed, I'm going to leave it another half an hour to dry properly before proceeding to do the highlights. First I'm going to start highlighting the skin. I will pick up a Cadian Fleshtone, and now I'm going to start painting all the muscles. So I'm going to be focused on covering the whole area of the muscles with this paint. Just leave the recesses intact. So if you want like a percentages, I'm covering like 90 to 95% of the skin with this paint. And after that I pick up Kislev Flesh, and this is going to be my smallest and the final highlight. So I'm going to use it only on the most raised areas, like on the nose, on the cheeks, on the ears, and on the part of the muscles that are on the top. Also, you're going to focus on the fingers, on the knuckles, and highlight all those areas with this very small highlight. Now I'm going to start highlighting everything that was black on this model. So for this I'm going to add on my wet palette a drop of white and black, and I'm going to create 4 different shades of gray. So I will start by mixing very little black with white, and I'm just going to keep adding a little white and creating brighter and brighter gray. So I will call these grays like 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's how I'm going to start applying it on this model. So you don't need actually to buy like 4 different grays. You can just start with the black and white and just mix little on your wet palette. It will stay very long time wet and usable, so you have all the time in the world to highlight the whole model with this. So I will start with the first darkest gray, and this color I'm going to use to highlight all that is left black on this model. So that will include all the pants, all the armor, weapons, and all the straps. On all the clothing items you're going to do the edge highlight and draw the thin lines, while I start working on the metal plates and the armor on the back. I'm also going to use the edge highlight, but this time I'm going to draw some thicker lines, and I'm going to sketch my points of light for the non-metallic metal. And from this point I won't work on the pants and the boots anymore. Now I'm going to be focused only on the armors and weapons. So I'm going to pick up my second brightest gray, and this time I'm going to repeat all the highlights I did in the previous step, but this time all my lines are going to be much thinner than in the previous step. And after I'm done with that, I'm going to pick up my third and my brightest gray, and this is going to be the smallest highlight with the most thinnest line. So I'm going to trace all the edges and try to add as much details as I can to these edges. I will try not to skip any one of them because this will actually bring a lot of details, and this will actually make this model stand out. And for the last and the final highlight on the armor, I'm going to use pure white. This is going to be the smallest highlight, so you don't need to put it everywhere, just on a few spots where you want to simulate like a glare from the lights that's coming from above. So just a few lines and the dots here and there. And when you work on this armor on his back, you want to actually highlight more than you will do actually on the shoulders and on his chest or on his weapon. So most of the model is now highlighted. I decided for his backpack to add a little blue tint to it. So I used a paint called Periscopes, and I diluted a lot, so you can see it's more a glaze than a wash actually. And then I applied a very light coat on top of the backpack just to make a blue tint. And then after everything was dried properly, I just went back to white and just reapplied the edge highlight on this section. I'm going to move on now to finish off with the armor panels. Next one that we're going to do is to be the blue one. So I will pick up a light sea blue and I'm going to apply a very thin edge highlight on this section. It's actually a very small section. You have a little space on his shoulder and a little place in the middle of the backpack and one like little bracelet on his left arm. So just very lightly apply edge highlight on these edges. And then after that is done, I'll just use a little of sky blue and just put a little of the lights in the corners, and I'm going to reinforce a little of those edge highlights on the shoulder plate and the backpack. And the last section of the armor panels that we need to do after this is going to be the white one. So I'm going to start with the deck 10 and then keep adding it white and go one layer, paint it, and then add more white, do the second layer until I bring it to the almost white color, and then I'm just going to highlight it with pure white. For the eyes, there is a very easy method of doing it. So just pick up a pure white and just paint the eye sockets very carefully, totally white. And while I'm here, I'm going to pick up Ivory and I'm going to paint his teeth with this color very carefully so I don't mess up the work that I previously did. Then I'm going to take a Nuln Oil and I'm going to wash the whole mouth with the teeth and both of the eye sockets where I already painted the eyes pure white. After the wash is dry, you just pick up a little of the black and just put a little dot in the middle of each eye. And to highlight the teeth, I just pick up a little of the white and apply the very little highlight just to make some teeth pop comparing to the rest. Now it's time to add some finishing touches to the models, so I'm going to add some blood effects. For this I'm going to use a Gangsta Workshop technical paint called Blood for the Blood God, and I'm going to use one of my very old brushes and I'm just going to stipple the blood effects on his fists and on his weapon, and I will also try to simulate like splatter effects that went a little on his armor and all around the model. And then for the LEDs on his gauntlet, I'm going just to paint them with the blue-green and add one white dot in the middle. And the last detail that I'm going to do on this model is to paint up the scars. For this I'm going to use a purple ink, so any purple ink will work. Just pick up a little and just paint the scars. If you use like a very thin brush and you just touch it, the paint will flow by itself inside the scars. And guys, I'm going to wrap up this video here. I just cut the tactical rock that he's standing on and I transfer him to the base that I 3D printed and painted before. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It will mean a lot to me and it will help this channel grow. And if you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the section down below and I will try to do my best to reply. This will be all for now. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon. Bye bye.